UFC 253 Adesanya versus Costa takes place this weekend, and what an amazing card. We're going to be going through the entire thing, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with our early prelim opener of Shane Young versus Ludovic Klein. I like this matchup. Shane Young was originally supposed to be taking on Nate Landwehr. That one fell through, no big deal. Shane Young right now on a 2-fight win streak after losing to Alexander Volkanovski not too long ago by decision. I'm sure we can let that one slide. He's lost to some good guys, but also something I want to talk about with Shane Young is he hasn't fought too high a level of competition so far in his career. 3-5 in Bo Yan. That's how he got his debut in the UFC, for beating a guy who was 3-5, and then he beat Rolando D, who was 9-6 at the time. I don't really know how much I favour that one. Then he beat Austin Arnett, who had lost a lot of fights as well, 16-5. Not the best guy in the world either. I feel like I'm going to go with Ludovic Klein because he's the number 2 guy out of Eastern Europe, and Eastern Europe is a tough place to be the number 2 guy of, I'll be honest with you guys, and I like his style. He's very aggressive. He weighed in at a much higher weight. He's fought at lightweight before. He's a naturally bigger guy. He's taken this one on short notice. However, Shane Young hasn't been in the octagon for a very long time, and Ludovic Klein's already fought in 2020 in February, fought before that in September as well. Shane Young hasn't been in the octagon since February of 2019. Ludovic Klein has fought 3 times since then. He's a young guy as well, 25 years of age. He still hasn't got his. The hunger is still there. I don't really consider this a short notice replacement. I don't know what the odds are, but I imagine they're going to be an underdog for Ludovic Klein. I think he's a live dog here. I wouldn't even be surprised if this was evens, because he's a very dangerous man. I think he's going to go out there, and I like the wildness in his attack, coming off a head kick and KO with punches afterwards in the first round in his last fight against a guy 14-5. Before that, he beat a guy with punches in the first round, William Lima, who was 13-1 at the time. I mean, these are great wins to have. Better than Shane Young's wins, even though Shane Young has lost to some good guys. He's a very good fighter, and he fights at CKB. I respect him. I'm going to be going with Ludovic Klein, coming in on short notice, because it basically isn't really short notice. Shane Young's been the one who's out the octagon for a very long time. Ludovic Klein's going to go in there, be wild in the first round, and I think he's going to catch Shane Young with something and get himself a finish. I mean, can you blame me for thinking this is going to happen? I mean, look what we've seen recently in the octagon. I'm going to be going with Ludovic Klein. I think he's a live upset in a short notice replacement. I think he really does get the job done against Shane Young. Moving on up the card to Kadis Ibragimov versus Danilo Marquez. Danilo Marquez is unranked anywhere in the world. I mean, this isn't a guy like every other short notice replacement that you see is ranked somewhere in the world, and I wondered why. Why is Danilo Marquez not ranked anywhere in the world? Because he hasn't fought anyone of talent whatsoever. And I was looking at this guy's record, and I'm like, how on earth are the UFC signing these fighters? There are better fighters everywhere in the world. 2 fights ago, he fought a guy who was 0-16. 5-4 is a good win that he has on his resume. The best win that he has on his resume. He beat a guy who was 0-3. He beat a guy who was 5-9. I don't like this. 8-7. He has 5 or 4 wins where they refuse to show the opponent's record. That tells you all you need to know about the opponents that Danilo Marquez has been fighting, and every single time he's stepped up, and by the way, when I say stepped up, I use that term quite liberally. 6-6 was his step up in challenge, and he lost that one by KO in the first round. Then he stepped up again to take on a guy 13-6. That's his big step up. Lost that one as well. I think he's going to fight Kadis Ibragimov, and even though Kadis Ibragimov has lost to guys like Ed Herman, Da Un Young, he also lost to Roman Dolidze not too long ago by KO. I believe it was like 2.5 months ago, so I do worry. I really do worry, because we just saw Gerald Meerschaert. I said 2 months, it was 3 months ago. He just got KO'd quickly. Like, these things do happen in fights, okay? It's always something you've got to watch out for. But I think I respect the losses of Kadis Ibragimov more than I do the wins of Danilo Marquez. I think he's going to go out there and get the job done, bounce back with a big win, and I could see him getting it done by TKO as well, because he's had some good wins. 7-0, 12-3, 15-3, 9-4. These are somewhat decent wins. 15-3. 12-3, 7-0, just because he lost his last few fights doesn't mean we get to forget about all of those things that he's done before that, and he's lost to some decent guys. I like his chances. I'm going to be going with Kadis Ibragimov getting a job done against Danilo Marquez. Danilo Marquez has not fought anyone of any talent whatsoever, and even the guys who he's fought that don't have talent a little bit, but do have a little bit more talent, the guys with zero talent have beaten him. So I'm going to be going with Kadis Ibragimov. I think he has some talent. Moving on up the card, Jesus Christ, Jeff Hughes versus Juan Espino. I'm going to go with Juan Espino. I've been waiting for this debut in the octagon for such a long time, and I don't know why we've waited so long. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He beat Maurice Green. That's a great win to have right now. Maurice Green is now currently going to go on and fight Greg Hardy. He's put some wins together in the UFC as well. Juan Espino beat him and then just did nothing for ages. I'm assuming he was injured. He beat Justin Frazier, who was 10-2 in the final of that season as well, but then he just did nothing. 2018, November. You're 39 years of age right now. It's why weren't you in a rush? And I found out obviously he had a bunch of injuries. Fair play. Now he's getting back in there against Jeff Hughes. I think he's going to ragdoll Jeff Hughes. I like Jeff Hughes, but he lost to Rafael Pessoa, which doesn't look too good, especially by decision. He lost to Maurice Green as well, which doesn't look too bad. But then again, Juan Espino beat Maurice Green. He also beat Maurice Green, no Jeff Hughes, but a rematch went to Maurice Green. Then Todd Duffy was kind of beating Jeff Hughes. Jeff Hughes caught him though and bounced back, and it was ruled a no contest after an eye gouge happened, and Todd Duffy kind of, Todd Duffy needed to go. He needed to get out of the cage. All good. All good. I'm definitely going to be going with Juan Espino taking down Jeff Hughes by just being a naturally bigger and more athletic man. Getting a job done by arm triangle choke in the first round by submission. Moving on up the card to the prelims. William Knight versus Alexa Kumur. I'm going to go with Alexa Kumur here. I like Alexa Kumur. He trains with Stipe Miocic. He's a very talented guy. 6-0 coming off a big win against Justin Leday, who, even though he's lost his fights in the UFC, he's lost to Alexander Rakic and Johnny Walker. Those aren't too bad of losses to have. Both of those guys are ranked right now. Johnny Walker just bounced back against Ryan Spann, and Alexander Rakic just beat Anthony Smith and is now in the top 5. Leday's a dangerous guy, okay? He's somewhat good. He's 9-2. That's a good record to have. And Alexa Kumur cruised by him by unanimous decision. It was a little bit close, don't get me wrong. It was competitive. But Alexa Kumur showed that he can go 3 rounds well. Beat 4-0 Fabio Cherant. Beat 4-1 Skipper. He's got good striking. He's very defensively aware. And I think he's going to need that in this matchup with William Knight, because William Knight is a dangerous, dangerous man. Alexa Kumur, 24 years of age. A tall guy, 6'1", not the tallest guy in the weight class whatsoever, but William Knight is not the tallest guy in the division either. I think he's 5'10", yep, 5'10", 32 years of age, just past his prime, so he's definitely going to be hungry for getting a win here, just to speed up his career, because he doesn't have much of his prime left. But I will say this, other than Cody Brundage, who is 5-0, what have you done recently? You beat Rocky Edwards, who is 12-9. Before that, you lost to a guy who was 2-0 by KO in the first round. As much as he's a big, scary guy, and he's coming off a bit of momentum because he won a fight on the Contender Series, and that tends to happen, Alexa Kumur was in that exact same situation with a big flying knee to ground and pound win against Fabio Cherant. He's younger, he's training at a good gym, he's going to be evolving more rapidly, he's got more things to work on in an early part of his career. I think he's going to go out there and beat William Knight by surviving the first round. And you know what, actually? I think he's going to go out there and KO William Knight in the first round. I really do. Alexa Kumur's got some real power, and he uses it against guys who are open to be hit with that power. I think William Knight's going to get caught being a little bit too wild in the first round with a big counter punch from Alexa Kumur, and he's going to get the job done. Moving on up the card, Alex Da Silva. Brad Riddell versus Alex Da Silva. Sorry, how dare I say Alex Da Silva's name first. Brad Riddell versus Alex Da Silva. Great matchup. 8-1 Brad Riddell fighting out of CKB. We all know who Brad Riddell is by now, and Alex Da Silva as well. 21-2. Great record. Great fighter. Hasn't really beat too many great competition opponents, but has been on a bit of a streak recently. A young guy as well, 24 years of age. He's very dangerous for Brad Riddell. I don't know why Riddell would take this matchup. I would have loved to have seen him versus Renato Moicano on this card instead. I think that would be main card worthy, so I don't know why they didn't make that matchup, but Renato Moicano recently got injured out of another opponent fight, so maybe it wouldn't have happened anyway, but still. We've got this matchup. Brad Riddell versus another dangerous test in Alex Da Silva. I think Riddell's too experienced against good level competition in the UFC. I mean, you're talking about a win over Magomed Mustafayev. I don't take that lightly. I know what a savage Magomed Mustafayev is. He beat Rafael Fiziev not too long ago. That guy that everyone's going crazy about right now. I think Brad Riddell is sitting himself right at the top of the unranked guys in the lightweight division. And if he wins this fight this weekend, I think he's going to be one fight away from getting a ranked opponent. And I see him getting it done. Still young, still working on his game. Beat great opponents. 12-2 Jamie Mullarkey. 14-3 Magomed Mustafayev in his last 2. Jesus Christ, these fucking long names. And Alex De Silva beat some good guys as well. 3-0, 7-1, 11-2 Rodrigo Vargas, who went out there and was basically dominating Brock Weaver before landing an illegal knee on him and giving Brock Weaver a win. I just think that Alex De Silva's lost to Alexander Yakovlev. He's lost to Jacob Kovalkiewicz, who is 8-3. Like, there's a level that he seems to not be able to jump over, and I think Brad Riddell is well and truly at that level. Beating Magomed Mustafayev is something I cannot ignore. And cracking Magomed Mustafayev on the chin and dropping him and nearly finishing him the way he did in that first round, I think Brad Riddell's going to go out there and make a statement against Alex De Silva, getting it done by TKO finish, moving on up the card. Moving on up the card. Oh my god. Try and keep a straight face. Diego Sanchez versus Jake Matthews is the headliner of the prelims. I don't think it is, actually. The UFC schedule says that Riddell versus Silva's the headliner, but Tapology says this one is. And I think that Diego Sanchez, Jake Matthews sounds like it makes a lot more sense for the main event of the prelims because of Diego Sanchez being in that fight. I mean, what can we say? You know, Diego Sanchez is, he's losing 10-8 rounds to CTE right now, I think it's fair to say. Not really too... There's just, you know, it's just an interesting fight to break down, to be honest with you guys. It's just an interesting one. You know, I just, you know, I think Jake Matthews is going to really hurt him. And I think he's going to hurt him real bad. And I like Diego Sanchez, man. I really like Diego Sanchez, but I think his... sprint forward headbutting technique that he's been using for his last two fights may not work against Jake Matthews. And don't get me wrong, I like Diego Sanchez. Won his last fight against Mikel Pereira by basically getting KO'd in too savage of a way, if that can be called a win. But you know what? He needed to be out of there. He clearly didn't know where he was. I'm joking. It looked like he definitely did know where he was. But fair play to him. He's thinking about his family. He wants to get his win bonus. I'm sure a lot of people would do the same if put in his position. But you know what? He lost to Michael Chiesa. Not too bad of a loss, I'll be honest with you. But then you lose to Matt Brown, Ally Quinter, you've been hurt a lot in your career recently, and I just don't think this is a good one for him to take right now in his career. I think Jake Matthews is really going to crack him really bad. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Jake Matthews being a, 7-1 favourite is a little bit high. That's a little bit high of being a favourite, but I think, listen, I don't blame the odds makers for not wanting to risk people making too much money on Jake Matthews here, so I get why they would make the odds so high and far apart, because Jake Matthews is basically a guaranteed win in my opinion. I don't see him losing to Diego Sanchez. He's got a great chin, he's got great recovery, he's got good grappling, he's fought great opponents all throughout his career. I just don't see Diego Sanchez's old ass, Sanchez's old headbutting ass, managing to take out Jake Matthews right now. I see Diego Sanchez using the force, keeping Jake Matthews at bay for a little bit, and I think after Jake Matthews' last few performances against Emil Weber-Meek, he showed he can go in there against a wild man in Emil Meek, take the damage and give it back and secure himself a win using fight IQ, which is exactly what he did to get a unanimous decision win against Emil Weber-Meek. Rostam Akman as well, 6-1. He just cruised by him and showed a really technical side that we haven't really seen to Jake Matthews, showing his improvement. He lost to Anthony Rocco Martin, but he even knocked down Rocco Martin in that fight as well and hurt him at one moment and was winning that fight at one moment in that time. Anthony Rocco Martin bounced back, but you know what? Rocco Martin had a razor close fight with Magny, who just went out there and dominated Robbie Lawler. I like Jake Matthews' chances here. He's 5-1 in his last 6 in the welterweight division, regardless of who it's against. He's beat great guys: Li Jing Liang, Shinso Ansai, who was 10-2 at the time, Bojan Velikovic, who was 15-5. These are good wins. I'm going to go with Jake Matthews, and I think if he doesn't KO Diego Sanchez, he's royally fucked this up for himself. Jake Matthews should really go out there and hurt him. And I think it would be better for Diego Sanchez, because the last thing we want is if Diego Sanchez wins and wants to continue, and then we have to watch him die. Okay? I don't want that. If Jake Matthews could just end this all with a nice little gentle KO, a nice mostly peaceful KO from Jake Matthews would be really enjoyable right now, and I think he's going to land it on Diego Sanchez, and I think he knows that as well. He knows what he's been given here. Headliner of the prelims, Australian eyes and New Zealand eyes are going to be on this card because of Adesanya, because of Brad Riddell, because of Shane Young, because of Kai Kara France. He'll make a statement against Diego Sanchez with a big first round KO. Moving on up the card, Ketlin Vieira versus Ciara Eubanks. Okay, Right, let's get ready for this prediction. This is going to be an interesting one. Ketlen Vieira versus Ciara Eubanks. Give me a second, guys. Heads. We're going to go with Ketlen Vieira. We're going to go Ciara Eubanks, actually. No, heads. Heads make sense for Ciara Eubanks. We're going to go with Ciara Eubanks getting the job here done. 6-4. Great record. I think she gets it done against Ketlen Vieira. I like Ketlen Vieira being 10-1. I really do respect that. But Julia Avila was 8-1, and Ciara Eubanks went out there and got the job done. Ketlen Vieira also hasn't fought in a very long time, and her last loss was a KO loss to Irene Aldana, which, don't get me wrong, is not a bad loss. But Irene Aldana is 11-5. Don't get me wrong. Good win. Irene Aldana is now taking on Holly Holm. I respect it, but a win over Kat Zingano by split decision, I don't know how much I value that anymore. A win over Sarah McMahon in 2017, don't know how much I value that anymore. You know, and you haven't really fought too many good names other than that. And then you look at her opponent, Ciara Eubanks, who's actually had a decent time of things, regardless of being 6-4. Beat Julia Avila 8-1. Beat Sarah Moras 6-5. Who's not a bad fighter herself. Actually, maybe not the best in the world, but you know what? Sarah Moras is not terrible. I'll be very honest, even though she's 6-6. She beat Liana Huha, who was 7-2 at the time. Like, Sarah Moras is not terrible. And that's a good win from Eubanks. Also, she lost to Betch Kohea, which really does leave a sour taste in my mouth when coming to predicting her fights. But she went to a close loss to Aspen Ladd, which I think could well have been a split decision. And that's Aspen Ladd. Just beat Yana Kunitskaya by KO. Like, I think that Ciara Eubanks is going to get the job done here, and I don't know why she's an underdog. I think this should be evens. Ketlen Vieira has beaten Kat Zingano by split decision, guys. I get it, but that's ages ago, and it's Kat Zingano. Like, I'm going to go with Ciara Eubanks here. She's coming off a KO loss in Ketlen Vieira. I'm going to go with Eubanks. She's been way more active. Vieira has not had a fight in ages. Has been trying to book matchups, but they keep falling through recently. Eubanks has had 2 fights in 2020 so far. 1 in September, 1 in May. I think she'll go out there and get the job done against Ketlen Vieira and really make a statement. I think she'll win a unanimous decision and just win it quite dominantly, in my opinion. Moving on up the card, Kai Kara France versus Brandon Royval. Great matchup. Brandon Raw Dog Royval. Amazing. You should get a partnership with Darren Till. I mean, it would be a great sponsorship to have, to be honest with you. I think it would do good for his career. But Brandon Royval, dangerous opponent. Coming up, Tim Elliott was his last opponent. Won that fight by, I believe it was a guillotine choke, was it? No, an arm triangle choke to Tim Elliott in the second round. Elliott was doing quite well in the grappling against Brandon Royval. It was a fun matchup, back and forth, a ton of scrambles. Good on the feet as well while it was on the feet. But, you know, mainly the scrambles and the submissions were there. And eventually Brandon Royval just caught him in the perfect arm triangle choke. I like Brandon Royval's chances. I just think Kai Kara France is very, very good, man. He's very good, and he doesn't have a part-time job like Brandon Royval, and he's training at CKB, and he's a young guy, and he's improving every single time we see him, and even in his losses, he looks spectacular, and I don't know how much I rate a win over Nate Williams, Brandon Royval. 29-18. He has good wins other than that, don't get me wrong. Lost to Casey Kenny, used to be a bantamweight. He was a bigger guy before. Now coming down to the flyweight division, I think he's going to run into a guy with Kai Kara France with great grappling defense that's very underrated. And people look at Kara France's record and see 8 losses and don't realize that this guy has been fighting tough guys in his career to up a weight class at bantamweight. There was not a lot of talent to go around in the lower weight classes before, and Kara France was constantly outsized by his opponents, but he managed to pull through and still salvage a career out of it, even when facing guys like Mark Striegel, who's soon to make a debut in the UFC at bantamweight, who was 12-1 at the time and even has a much better record now of 18-2. Like, that's who he's losing to. Then you look further down his career, Dana Batgarel, another guy signed with the UFC as a bantamweight right now when Dana Batgarel was 2-1. I like Kai Kara France's chances. Now that he's settled into the flyweight division of the UFC, he's had good wins. He had a great streak. I mean, what is he in his last few fights? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 out of his last 10 fights have been wins against good guys. Mark De La Rosa, 11-2. Raulian Paiva, 18-1. Elias Garcia, 6-1. Tyson Nam, who's now on a 2-fight KO streak at bantamweight, upper weight class. I think that Kai Kara France, even the Brandon Moreno performance, he was doing good. It was a close fight. I thought Brandon Moreno won the last 2 rounds, albeit, but Kai Kara France was competitive till the end. The third round started to sneak away with him a little bit, but he changed that in the Tyson Nam fight, increased his output, looked better over the 3 rounds, showed his improvement, and his grappling defense is amazing, you know? It's very rarely you see some guy dominate Kai Kara-France in the grappling. They just seem to sometimes outrange him on the feet and make it a little bit difficult for him. I don't think Brandon Royval has that ability. And I'm going to go with Kai Kara-France winning himself a unanimous decision, chopping at the legs, working to the inside, landing good shots to the body, and then coming upstairs afterwards for a unanimous decision win. Kai Kara-France gets it done. Moving on, Hakeem Dawodu versus Zubaira Tukhugov. I'm looking forward to this one as well. I'm going to go with Tukhugov. I like Hakeem Dawodu's chances, don't get me wrong, but this is an evens fight, and I'm going to go with Tukhugov. I think Dawodu should be an underdog here. I like Dawodu's chances. I like Dawodu as a fighter. I'm going to give you another knockout. I like him, okay? He's very appealing to watch fight. He's very technical on the feet. He had a great head kick against Yoshinori Horii that was an amazing KO on all the highlight reels there possibly is. I'm going to give you another knockout. I like his voice. It's just the perfect Canadian pitch of annoyance. But I'm going to go with Zubaira Tukhugov here. I think he's fought great opponents. Listen, we didn't know who Lerone Murphy was then. Now we know he's the guy who KOs Ricardo Ramos in the first round. Ricardo Ramos is no slouch, guys. Okay? Zubaira Tukhugov beat Kevin Aguilar in the first round. Aguilar then went on short notice turnaround against a guy in Charles Rosa who was beating Shane Burgos stand-in for 2 rounds in their fight. And looked good, and it was a close fight. I thought Charles Rosa did barely enough to win, but Kevin Aguilar did not get KO'd. Showing how much power Zubaira Tukhugov has. He's had some tough fights in his career, but I think he's really starting to come into his own. He lost a split decision to Renato Moicano. And that was Moicano in 2016 at Featherweight. That's a different level of Moicano when he was beating guys like Calvin Kattar as well. I'm going to be going with Zubaira Tukhugov here. I do think he gets the job done against Dawodu because Dawodu seems to make things a little bit too close. He doesn't have that big chance of domination. I mean, he did look good against Yoshinori Horii, really took over in that 3rd round and got the head kick finish. But the split decision to Julio Arce, the split decision to Kyle Bochniak, like, I want to see him do better against people, and I haven't quite seen him... I haven't seen him distance himself from the pack enough with these close split decisions. KOs over Aguilar in the first round, who was 17-2 at the time, do separate you from the pack a little bit, you know? I think he's going to go out there, get the job done. I think Zubaira Tukhugov has more of a chance to win in spectacular fashion out of nowhere. I think if Dawodu wins, it's most likely going to be a very competitive decision that's razor close. That's a very high likelihood, the way that Dawodu's going to win. I think Zubaira has more chances. And in this smaller cage, those smaller chances out of nowhere seem to happen a little bit more often. The big KOs, the catching in submissions. I think Zubaira has the chance to do all of that. And plus Hakeem Dawodu, the grappling is there to be maybe played with Zubaira Tukhugov. I think he'll go out there, mix in the takedowns. I hope he doesn't gas out in the 3rd round. If you want to pick a finish for Dawodu on good odds, I'd say 3rd round TKO, but I'm not going to pick Dawodu. I'm going with Tukhugov. He's beat good opponents. I thought he won against Lerone Murphy, even though it was a draw. I think he very clearly won against Lerone Murphy, but it was a close fight. I thought he won against Lerone Murphy, though. You know, I think it should have been a decision, unanimous, 2-1, but still. I'm going with Zubaira Tukhugov. I think he's actually going to crack Dawodu. After that last performance against Aguilar, he seems like he's found his power. I think he will crack Dawodu early and either win the fight based on the knockdown to get 10-8 rounds early, or get the finish. And I'll go with actually a finish. I'm going to go with a finish for Zubaira Tukhugov because I'll tell you this, finishes seem to happen so often on these cards. I'm going with Zubaira Tukhugov, getting a job done by finish. I think he'll just be a little bit too fast and switched on early for Dawodu, who seems to like to ease himself into the fight and be a little bit too technical at times. Tukhugov will take advantage and crack him. Moving on, Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. Oh, God. Here we go. Dominic Reyes will win. He'll pull back. He'll play the counter game. I don't see Reyes going out there and just being onslaughting. I don't see him having an aggressive onslaught on Jan Blachowicz. I don't see that happening whatsoever. I think he's going to go out there, play the range game, throw the kicks at the knees, the oblique kicks, the leg kicks, chew up Jan Blachowicz from range. He'll let Jan Blachowicz come to him because I like the way Santos did that in the Blachowicz fight. He started luring backwards. Come on, Blachowicz, come to me. Throw those combinations. And then Santos will crack him out of nowhere because in combinations moving forward, Jan Blachowicz is susceptible to get cracked. And I'm going to be going with Dominic Reyes here because as much as I like Jan Blachowicz, and I like this whole Polish power, I like the Polish power stuff, and I like the grabbing the noose of a man who committed suicide in the woods story that came out about him. It's weird, don't get me wrong. But, you know, Jan Blachowicz does it. I mean, it's maybe some demonic stuff. Maybe it will carry him a win in this fight. But Dominic Reyes, 12-1, just beat John Jones. This argument should be over, in my opinion. I like the style for Jan Blachowicz. It's a good matchup for him. Reyes, tall guy, he's there to be hit at times. He's quite young in the game, even though he just beat John Jones. He's quite young in the game of MMA, so maybe Blachowicz could be the crafty veteran that catches him with a big shot. I think Reyes is too good, and I don't think that KOing Luke Rockhold and Corey Anderson means that you're a KO artist. Okay? Those guys get KO'd by anything. Alright, so I'm going to go with Dominic Reyes. He's got a great chin. He showed that in his career. He's fought guys like Ozdemir who have got good power, taken good shots off of him, taken good head kicks and decent shots off of Jones who has no power, so I don't know why I even brought that one up. But still, Dominic Reyes just beat John Jones. He's only going to get better from that, and it was a loss. So it's like he gets the validification of a win because we all know he won the fight, but he still has the hunger of a guy coming off of a loss with something still to prove. That combination is going to be dangerous. I think he'll make it slow. It will be a very slow first round. I think he'll pick at Jan Blachowicz, making Jan Blachowicz want to close the distance to try and win some rounds back for himself. And at the end of the first round, I think Reyes is going to catch him moving backwards like he caught Weidman and drop him like he caught OSP as well, bouncing off the cage and circling and catching him as well at the end of the fight. I think he'll catch Jan Blachowicz in the first or second round with a big shot and finish the job much like Santos did. Moving on. Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. Oh my god. I can't wait to do a full fight breakdown of this. I'm going to go with Paulo Costa getting the job done. I really am. I like Israel Adesanya. I just watched them both face off, and I'll be honest with you guys, I sway back and forth on these predictions. There are some late nights where I'm thinking about, am I right on this? Maybe I should go back to Adesanya. You know, Costa's sometimes a little bit reckless. Could he get caught by something? And I sway back to Costa. Yeah, but Adesanya, I just can't help but wonder how he's going to deal with the massive pressure of Costa and the power and the size and the strength and the skill of Costa, which is something that no one mentions. The skill of Costa. He's sick. He's so good. His head kicks are sick. His body kicks are one of the best body kicks I've seen. His switch kick to the body is so clean, how he sneaks it up there under the elbow. He's so good. Leg kicks, chopping, powerful. People don't talk about these things when they talk about Costa. Every single time he punches, the other hand is right next to his chin. Every time. He's so technical and so good, and I think that's what people overlook, and I think I'm going to pick him here. I'm going with Paulo Costa getting the job done. I like Israel Adesanya. I just watched them both square off in a hotel lobby, and they're looking at each other, sizing each other up. I don't see a 3-inch height difference. I don't, man. I know it says that Paulo Costa is 6'1". I don't see that. I really don't see that. And I know that Israel Adesanya's had some good fights in his career, and has he though? He beat Robert Whittaker. Amazing. The Gastelum one was a bit close. We just watched Gastelum get dominated by Hermansson. First round submission, by the way. Beat Robert Whittaker. Very good. Very, very good. I like that one. I'm going to give you full credit for that one. Yoel Romero fight. Was close, dude. Romero won rounds 1. Round 4. Don't get me wrong, Costa had a close fight with Romero as well, which is kind of why it's so difficult to break down this fight, because everything you say about one guy, you can kind of counteract it with a thing about the other guy. So it's difficult for me to make a prediction here. I'm going to go with Paulo Costa because, listen, the Yoel Romero one, it's close, man. It was close, and you could see that Izzy kind of didn't want to get hit in that fight, and I think with that kind of tentativeness against a guy with the power of Costa, he'll get it done. Gastelum is a welterweight, man, and he was catching you with head kicks. Costa's a big boy. I think he's 6'2". I don't see a 3-inch height difference from the video I just saw. I saw Costa right up close to his height level. Just by the tuft of his hair was he the same height. If you measured it by Costa's hair at the top, they were the same height. Like, I don't see that much of a difference. He's a huge guy. I think he's going to go out there and just be too big and powerful. Plus, being extremely technical for Adesanya. Because, listen, a win over Derek Brunson, good. Good job. Anderson Silva beat you in round 2, man. That's Anderson Silva, dude. Dominate, please. You know what I mean? It's Anderson Silva at this point. Beat you in round 2, man. You know, like, it's very good, don't get me wrong. And then you look at these other fights, Brad Tavares, you took him to a decision. And as much as Israel Adesanya says, I wanted to go 5 rounds, no one wants to go 5 rounds. No one does. I'm sick of hearing that. As much as he said he wanted to go 5 rounds, people don't. When you're throwing knees up the middle as Brad Tavares rushes forward with haymakers, you're not trying to go 5 rounds. You're trying to KO him with that knee. When you're throwing front kicks to the body and then mixing it up with a question mark kick to the head on Brad Tavares and knocking him down, you're not wanting to go to a decision. You're trying to knock him out, and you couldn't because he kept the pressure on you, and he kept coming forward, and he put his chin down, and he swung every time you swung and really closed the distance. Did he get picked apart for 5 rounds? Yes. I think it's different with a guy like Costa. He'll mix in the kicks, and I could actually see him hurting Adesanya to the body and finishing it upstairs. And one thing I was worried about, and the only thing that was going to sway my mind, was if Paulo Costa got influenced by Adesanya's shit-talking. That was the only thing that was going to worry me. Is Israel Adesanya going to go out there and get in Paulo Costa's head? I think it's the other way round, man. I think it's the other way round. Somehow, with limited English, Paulo Costa has won the trash talking against Adesanya for the majority part of this build-up. And they're friendly in the lobby, so there's no heat, no tension, no wanting to kill each other. None of that in Paulo Costa's mind. They're shaking hands, making jokes. I think Costa's going to go out there, cool, calm, collected, improve rapidly from his last performance, because let's not forget, Costa's a very young guy, the younger guy in this equation here. He's going to improve a little bit more, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, Adesanya's going to improve in the grappling, but in the striking, Costa has everything to improve on here. I think he'll go out there and catch Adesanya, hurt him to the body first. If he was emotional, he might headhunt and get caught with a knee up the middle. He's not going to be. There hasn't been that real bad blood that I was expecting because Costa's somehow won the trash talking. He'll go out there, rip to the body with kicks and punches, eventually go upstairs and just be too much, too powerful, too technical for Adesanya. KO him in the first or second round. I'll go with second round TKO for Paulo Costa. Start of the second. He'll make the reads in the third, start wearing him down, being a bit of a bully, and in the second round, he'll go out there and get it done. Moving on to nothing, because the card's over. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye. See you later.